Hi, greetings. Thanks for participating in the conversation about the fear of public speaking and what can 1,000 people do to you that one can't, those of you who have dove into that conversation. So I just want to address a couple of things in the conversation, maybe push back on some of your observations and some of those kinds of things, and just test the reality, the rationality of the fears that we're talking about. So first of all, let's say this: there's what scholars call rational fear, and there's what scholars call irrational fear. And so for me, that translates on a pretty simple guy to real fear, and things that we should really legitimate fear, and then imagined fear, things that aren't really there. And we kind of recognize this imagined fear if you've ever walked this story out in your life. So we all agree that there are no monsters, and so we have to take the trash out, and it's late at night, right? And the back porch light is burned out, and so we carry the trash can and we go out the back door and down the steps and across the backyard, and we're heading for the dumpster in the alley. And about the time we get to the back gate near the dumpster, like, we give that up. There are monsters, and we run away. We throw the trash, and it freaks us out, right? And back in the house, we know that there aren't monsters, and what just happened? Well, our brain reacts to fear in the same way for imagined fear as it does for real fear. It doesn't distinguish. So whatever happens to us, it's full on, full out self-protection mode. That's what the brain does. So then we get into this discussion about what can 1,000 people, I put them over here, 1,000 people do with us that one can't. And so what we would see is, if fear is our response to risk, threat, danger, or harm, and we're okay talking to one person, then clearly we have no fear here because there is no risk, threat, danger, or harm. But when we say with 1,000 people we do experience fear, what we're saying is there is risk. There's risk, there's threat, there's danger, there's harm. There's something there. And we're trying to unpack the difference. And one of the responses in the reply column to my first video talks about, well, it's because of the power of numbers. So I just want to check that for just a second and share with you some experiences that I've had, and maybe you can walk this out in the comfort of wherever you're taking the class from as you're listening to this video today, tonight, whenever it is. So for me, it's like this. We say that we have no fear with one. Okay, cool. Over here we say we have a fear if there's 1,000. Okay, so let me ask you this question. Do we have the same fear with 500? And a lot of people still say yes. So we say, okay, how about, is there fear anxiety with 100? Most people in my face-to-face classes would say yes. Is there still fear at 75? Most people in my face-to-face classes would say yes. 50? Yes. 25? Yes. And now we start to see some people say, yeah, there's fear, and other people say, no, I think I'm good there. But overwhelmingly, the odds are that if we were to put all of them together, there's still more fear at 25 than not. Okay? And so then I say, okay, what about 15? Less, but still some. Okay? 10. Now, by and large, my experience has been that most people at about 10 start to say, yeah, I'm okay with that. Okay, so let's say that 10 is the number where we're okay, but 15 is the number where people, like, anxiety starts to kick in. Okay, so if 15 is where there's fear and 10 is where there is not fear, let me ask you this. Is there fear at 14? Some. 13? Still some. 12? Yeah, maybe a few. 11? Yeah, maybe one or two still hanging on. 10? Nope, no fear. So here's the question then. From 10 to 11, what's the difference? Why has that arbitrary line been drawn on those two numbers? And I'd ask you to walk that out for yourself. Where do you feel fear? And then start walking it back as you think about having to do a presentation in front of people, right? Where is the number where you feel fear and the number where you don't? Okay, because remember that the analysis that I'm responding to says there's power in numbers. And if that's true, then let's look at that. So there's the weaker power here. We don't feel fear. Now there's power here. So let's look at this line. What created the line? Now, if you're really honest and you take a really rational look at this, here's what I'm going to tell you. The difference from this side to this side of the line is absolutely nothing. There is no difference between 10 people and 11 people. It's just that we've created this arbitrary story, this false narrative that here I'm safe and here I'm at risk. Okay? And so if the number from 10 to 11 is a false fear, then what about from 11 to 12? So 11, we can say that 11 is not scary. So then let's look at the line. What about 12? And if necessary, we could take that all the way up to 1,000, because what we'll discover is all the way up to 1,000, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing in the number of people in the audience that changes. There's nothing that 1,000 people can do to us that one person can't. Let me ask you this question, because the other comment I want to respond to that's in the thread so far talks about judgment, and there's 1,000 people that will be judging me and all of that. So I have a few things on judgment. The first is this. I don't know you. I don't know where you are. But I'm guessing that most of you are not so agoraphobic that you live in an apartment, you never come out, and that your groceries get, so agoraphobic, your groceries get delivered to your front step, you crack the door, or you have a doggy door and you pull the groceries in so you don't have to interact with people, right? Which means that, by and large, all of us are people who are interacting with our world, right? If that is true, do you believe that you are escaping judgment on a daily basis? I'm going to tell you that you're not. In fact, I'm going to tell you that remember we fear being judged by 1,000 people? I'm going to say that you've probably been judged in your average day by at least 1,000 people, if not more. Because realize this, and this is probably you. If not you, congratulations, but it's me, and I'll just be honest and fess up to that. I'm walking down the hall and I might say, whoa, I never would have worn that shirt with those pants. Or, I throw someone under the bus when I'm at wherever. Wow, wore your pajamas to Walmart. Great plan. Couldn't get dressed. Right? That's me passing judgment, right? And that's the thing we say we're fearing of 1,000 people, but here's the deal. We're subjected to it, and we do it all day, every day. Okay? So that being the case, I think what we're really saying is we're fearing putting ourselves out in front of 1,000 people who could judge us. And it's not the judgment we fear, but it's the negative judgment that we fear. And I think we have to be really clear about that. And so we fear negative judgment. But I'd like to push back on that just a little bit also. Because if it is true, and I don't believe that it is, but if it is true that 1,000 people could negatively judge us, so whatever your deal is, you're that bad or you're that good, that you could make 1,000 people judge you negatively, is it not also plausible then that same 1,000 people could also judge you positively? Right? So it's how we frame it. We have this catastrophic way of looking at things, this negative way of, they're going to judge me and it's going to be horrible. I argue that if that is true, don't believe that it is, but if it is true, then the converse is true, that they could also judge me positively. And so let me say this about that whole judgment. In 1,000 people, here's the real story. Yes, people are going to judge you negatively. And yes, people are going to judge you positively. That's just the way that works. There are some who are going to like what you have to say, and there are some who are not going to like what you have to say. And they're all going to be together in one big audience. And the idea, the overgeneralized thinking that you have that suggests that all of them will think one way, never happened. Okay? But even if it could, let's even go further with it. Even if it could, so you are, let's just say you are the worst speaker in the world. You're horrible, right? And you get up on stage and you're horrible and you do your most horrible speech and the audience watches and you finish your horrible speech. What does the audience do? And they leave, right? So you're the greatest speaker in the world and you do the greatest speech ever imagined by man. and you finished your great speech, and what does your audience do? And they leave. My point being that this thing that we say that we fear, this judgment that we say that we fear, likely we'll never even know what the judgment was because audiences behave the same way. Social environment, social norms, unwritten rules of behavior dictate that. The environment that they're in, when you finish, they're going to clap, they're going to get up, and they're going to leave, whether they liked it or not. Moreover, let me break this down for you for just a minute. So we talk about we're okay with one, but we're afraid of 1,000. And we work through this lens of judgment, right? So I'm afraid of 1,000 people judging me. Well, think about this for just a minute. 1,000 people are going to judge you, and likely you're never going to know. But even if you did, there are 1,000 people who are strangers you'll never know, you'll never see again. You do your speech, they do their thing, they leave, and they pass their judgment. And let's say that it's negative, okay? Well, here's my deal. When I think about my self-worth and my self-esteem and how how that works in a fluid kind of way and how it shifts, people that I don't have much meaning to me, if they pass judgment on me, it may affect me to some degree, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal because they're not that big of a deal in my world. However, if I'm in a relationship with one person, I'm engaging with one person, likely that's a pretty meaty, significant interpersonal relationship. My meeting with my interaction with the one person probably has some basis in some sort of relationship, whereby if that person says something judgmental, I'm really going to get burned by it. For example, how about this? I teach face-to-face classes, and so we're in the 4th week of class, and I have 20 students in a class, so there's some numbers, right? There's 20 of them. And if they said to me, you know, Roger, I really hate you, I hate your class, you're lame and you're boring, I would go, okay, I get that, I'll try a little harder, but really what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my other class, I'm going to talk to them because they're a whole lot nicer and cooler than you are, right? So because they have some weight in my life, but not a ton, it's going to dictate how I gauge their judgment of me. Now, in an interaction with, say, my father, if my father said, oh, God, how could I raise a son that was so stupid and lazy? That's going to take my self-esteem, my self-worth, pull the plug and leave me empty. It's going to upset my world. It's going to have severe consequences, that judgment. I say that, or I use that example to say this. The thing that we say that we fear over here, judgment, is far more likely to happen here in a far more significant way. So the thing that we say that we fear can happen here, does happen here, and for all intents and purposes will happen here, and yet we engage here. Doesn't happen here, but we say that it might, and so we fear it, but it won't, and so we disengage. So I need y'all to make sense of that for me, because here's the story, is that we're missing out on a lot of opportunity here simply because of an irrational, false narrative that keeps us from playing the game. Just doesn't make sense to me, right? Now, I just want to say this. I'm not advocating, as I use this example, that we should disengage from our interpersonal relationships. Not my goal at all, right? I believe in healthy, intimate, deep interpersonal relationships. I just use this example to point out that the thing that we say that we fear isn't likely to happen here, but even though we say we fear it, we're willing to risk it here. We're willing to do that. And so I'd just like you to rationalize your way through that a little bit, think on that, and we'll talk more about fear of apprehension here in the next couple of days. Just want to say thanks, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.